So today's class is about subqueries and joins in SQL. Okay, we'll be talking about subqueries, how to write subqueries, and how to join multiple tables in SQL. So joins is just all about joining multiple tables, like using the inner join, using inner join, left join, and right join. Okay, so first of all, we have to talk about subqueries. So subqueries is basically it's all about nesting a query inside another query. Like it's just an inner query, like writing a query inside another query. Okay, that's what subquery is all about, and it's very easy to write. Okay, so it's also like it's used to return data that will be used in the main query. All right, so let's say we want to, okay, first of all, we have two databases that we've been working on. Okay, so let me show you the database that we've been working on. Land area, yeah, that's there. Oh, sorry. All right, so this is the, not two database, actually two tables rather, two tables that we've been working on. So this is the first table that we've been working on, and the second table we have salary. We have salary. This is the second table. With this table right here, I'll be showing you how to write a subquery. So let's say in a company where we work, let's say in the company where we work, we want to get the average number, or let's say the average feeding allowance. Let's take feeding allowance for instance. The average feeding allowance that is being paid to every worker in the company. So we need the average feeding allowance, so we know those whose allowance needs to be cut down and those whose allowance needs to be increased. Okay, so what we are going to write here is using a subquery. The first thing we are going to say is I will say select average, which is AVG, sorry, AVG allowance, right? Okay, let's take feeding allowance. Feeding allowance from salary. So when we run this code, let me check. Okay, we have an error here. Why do we have an error? Why do we have an error? Select from salary. Okay, the code is correct. Hold on. Let me take this off. So this is it, and we have the average feeding allowance here, and we are supposed to compare it with every other person, every other allowance that we are, every other person's allowance in the company. Okay, so what we're going to do is that we're going to nest this one. This one right here is going to become our subquery. We put it inside here, and then we write select. We select their first name and last name, first name, just like we did in our previous class, right here, just like we did right here when we are talking about advanced aggregate function, so we do the same thing here, so we can display the first name and the last name with the allowance. Okay, so we have feeding allowance. Okay, have to select it all from salary. So when we run this code right here, you will see that we have the last name, the first name, the feeding allowance, and the average feeding allowance. And now we want to extract those who earn more than the average. Okay, this is the average for all the allowance, all the feeding allowance that is being paid in this company. So we want to get those that are paid more than the average, like those who earn more than 3,514. So what we are going to do is that, and mind you, this average, this subquery right here, you can give it a name. You can give it a nickname. You know, you can call it as AVG, depending on whatever you want to call it, allowance or whatever you want to call it, or you can just feed. You know, you can just call it any name you want to call it. It will still work. So we'll still get to a point where I'll show you how to use that name over there, or why it is necessary to give all these names, you know, all these acronyms right here. We'll treat that in our Windows function when we're about to treat Windows function. I think after this I'll go into Windows function, so I'll show you how where that really comes in handy. Okay, so what we have to do now is so let's assume we don't know what the average feeding allowance is, right? Let's assume we don't know what it is. We just copy this one, this subquery right here. So we come down here, let me see where feeding is greater than, then we put our subquery. Okay, so we are going to do is to run the code. So now, good, so now you can see we have our last name, we have our first name, we have the feeding allowance, that is those who earn feeding allowance more than the average, and then we have the average feeding allowance. So this is how you write subquery. There is no magic in writing subquery. Subquery is just writing a query inside another query. Okay, so this query inside here is just a subquery. That's how a subquery works. But as we dive deep into this class, you will understand more about subquery, because we'll be using more of it in our classes and in other things we are doing, maybe in building projects and all that. So this is how to use a subquery. So the next thing we'll be looking at is table. I'm sorry, not table. We'll be looking at join. Okay, so join is just is a clause, right? Just like we have the where clause, having clause, and the rest. So join is a clause that is used to combine rows from two or more tables. Okay, but it's based on their related value. Okay, you use it to combine rows based on their related values. So we'll be treating that here, so you see how it works. So for this particular topic, I'll be creating a new table. I'll be creating two new tables for it, just two simple tables. So because these tables we have here, they are overloaded with data, with information. So I'll just create a very simple table with about 2 or 3 information in it, 2 or 3 values in it, so we can understand more how it works. So let's go ahead and create a table first. So we say create table. Our first table, we can call it transaction. Okay, and hold on, and then create ID. No, sorry. So we have customer ID. Okay, so we have customer ID, which is an integer, int, give it a comma, we can call it primary key, sorry, and then transaction ID, we can get a transaction ID is an integer, and then we get the amount that was paid, so it's also an integer. So all we have to do is we close it here. Okay, so we run the query. So this right here has created a table for us, so we can go down here and see if it works. So as you can see, it has a green tag right here, meaning the table has been created successfully. Alright, so we have to move to adding values to the table. So we'll just add like maybe 3 values to the table. Okay, so we go and use insert into name of the table transaction, and the first one is course ID, the second one is transaction ID, while the third one is amount. Okay, so values. So because the first one is an integer, we've treated it before, so just give it 1. Transaction ID can be 90, and then the amounts can be 20.5 cents or $20, 20,000 or whatever. So just give it 20, and then the second one one. Now for this third one, I would like to keep it I would like to leave it empty, because not all customers in the company has not all customers in the company will actually do a transaction for a given period of time. Okay, you might stay like a customer might join the company and then stay like, oh, I think this. So you might have a customer in your company or register in your company but won't make a transaction for like months. So let's say we have a customer like that, and then there is no transaction for this person. Everything is null. Okay, so let's go ahead and do not forget your comma. Okay, so before we do that, let's take this right here. So we've successfully added values into this table. So let's view what we've done. So we say from landmark transaction. All right. So this is what we've done so far. So this is the table we've created, and if you look up here, you would have to refresh before you can see your table. So this is the new table called transaction. So we have a transaction table right here. We need to create another table so we can join it with this one. Okay, so let's go ahead and create another table. All right, so since we already have this query right here, we don't have to keep writing it over and over again. Just copy it and paste it here. Okay, so we call this order ID. Let's take away this primary key for now, and then we call this maybe the customer ID, and this will be the item itself. Item to be a variable character, definitely. Or we can use 50, but this is okay. So, oh, sorry. So we've created this table now. We can go ahead and create this, add some values in it. So here we have customer. First one we have order ID. Second one we have customer ID, and the third one we have the item. So the order ID will be 1101. Let's just leave it this way. And the customer ID, let's leave it at 1. The item, let's say laptop. The order ID 1102. Yeah. The course ID, let's still put this one at 1. The item, let's say mouse, this one 1103, and then 3, or let's say 2, and this one will be cable, let's call it cable. So let's insert this. Okay, so the values, there's an issue with the value. Let's check the table. Teacher. Oh, sorry. We are adding this here because this is a string and this is a number. So when you're adding a string to your table, you need to use a quotation mark. Okay, so that's why it didn't come out successful. So now we've added our values. Let's view the table and see. Great. Okay, so this is our table. This is our second table, and we'll be performing the join clause on the both tables. Okay. So let's drop this database so I can add a name to it. Okay, let's just drop it and create it again. Drop the table, not the database. So we dropped it. Let's create it again. Alright, so now we have a name, we have an item, we have customer ID, and we have the order ID. So let me show you, let me explain how the join clause works. Like I said in the beginning, join is basically a clause that is used to combine rows from 2 or more tables based on their relatable value. Okay, so we have inner join, we have left join, we have right join. Okay, so I've created 2 tables that I'll be using for this demonstration. So let me show you a practical example of how to use join. Okay, so let's say we want to join these 2 tables. So the first thing we're going to do is we say select. Let's say we want to join okay, let's just select all for now. Select all from customer. That is the table on the left will be customer. Okay, so we say select all from customer, and then we write, because we want to do inner join here, we say inner join, and then the table on the right will be transaction, so we say transaction, and then we want to join it based on, okay, we want to join transaction and customer based on, so we say based on the customer ID, Okay, customer, will say customer dot cost ID. That's the cost ID from the customer table. We want to join the two of them based on the cost ID. Okay, so cost ID from the customer table equals to transaction. The transaction is the table, so we say transaction dot cost ID. That is the cost ID from the transaction table. Okay, but just like we did in our advanced aggregate function, we can come here and then instead of selecting all, we can select customer. We can say select customer dot cost name. So we have cost name, so we can get the customer's name. Okay, and then we can say transaction dot amount. Okay, so it will join it based on these two things right here, based on the cost ID, but it will only display the amount and the name. But these are the things it's joining it based on. So let's run this query and see how it works. So as you can see right here, we have John, Jude, and Bones from the customer, and then from the transaction we have 20, 20, and 34. So these are two different tables right here. We have John, Jude, and Bones, and then we have 20, 20, 34. There's a reason why we have 20, 20, 34. Now let me open this transaction table right here. So this is the transaction table. We have 20. 20 appeared once, but it has a cost ID of 1. This is the cost ID 2, which is 34. And then in the customer, we have cost ID appeared cost ID 1 appeared twice. So under cost ID 1 we have John and we have Jude. Okay, so what this thing does is that it joins all the matching values together. So because this ID appeared twice, ID 1 appeared twice here from the left, it has to select this one, this 20, and then show it twice because ID 1 appeared twice, so it has to show 20 twice. So that's why we see 22 times here. Okay, that's what inner join does. So inner join selects brings out all matching ID from the two tables. So if you look from here, we have information from here, and then we have information from here, and they all have matching ID. So this one has ID 1, ID 1, ID 1, ID 1. This one has ID 2, and this one has ID 3, and this 34 has ID 3. Let's check. Okay, ID 2. Sorry. Okay, 2. It has ID 2. Bones has ID 2. So that is why we have this right here. And this is still how to write the right join and the left join. While writing them, you don't have to change these queries, this code right here. You don't have to change it. All you have to do is you come here and then you change it to right, and then you run the query. So what this does basically is that it selects all ID from the right and then selects all matching ID from the left. You understand? So it shows all ID from the right. It first of all shows all ID from the right, and then it goes to the left, and then it looks for the ID that will match the one on the right. So as you can see here, we have 3 ID on the right. So it selects all of them, and then it goes to the left, and then it looks for the ID that will match the one on the right. So when you change this thing and you put left, which is the left join, and you click on run. So what this one right here does not show anything on the cost ID 3. Okay, because under the in the transaction table we do not have anything here, and in the customer table we do not have anything in the ID 3. So what we are going to do now is we are going to update this transaction table, and we're going to fill in these two this tran ID and amount. So let me just go ahead and update it. Updates So update transaction, and then we set tran underscore ID. Because we are updating the transaction ID and the amount, we add the amount as well, equals to 50 or whatever you want to set it, where cost ID equals to 3. So we are updating the third one. Okay, so let's run the code now. Let's select and see. Select all from good. So now we have updated the transaction ID and the amount. So let's run this left join again and see what happens. So left join is bringing all the items from the left, all the values from the left, and then looks for a matching ID from the right. Let's go to right join. All right. So see this right join right here. So it's bringing out all the information from the right. Okay, so right join is bringing out all the information from the right, and then it looks for a matching value in the left. So as you can see, we do not have any matching value from the left here, so it doesn't display anything under here, but everything on the right is complete. So if we have 4, if we have an ID which is 4, it will still not display because it does not match with what we have here. It does not match with what we have here. So okay, so this is how the join class works. Okay, this is how the join class works. You don't have to change the code here, you don't have to change anything. All you have to change is whether you want to do a right join, left join, or inner join. Okay, so this is all about